Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar organized by the Civil Society Network. We are really pleased to see so many of you on the call today. For some of you very early, for some of you quite late already, and for others lunchtime. So it's a terrible time for everyone. We're in the same boat, but most of all, it's brilliant and fantastic to see so many of you join. This webinar on the Year of Action for Nutrition, and we'll be particularly looking at how civil society can meaningfully engage throughout this really important year for us. So before we start, logistical issues to sort out. So first, for interpretation, if you are a Spanish speaker, please choose your language, Spanish, by clicking on the icon you see here on the right, interpretation. It should be, I think, at the bottom of your screen, and there you can choose French or Spanish. For the French speakers, unfortunately, we are having a bit of an issue which we are trying to sort out. But if we cannot have interpretation today, we will work out how to either organize this in French or to send you all the material in French afterwards. With sincere apologies, we have an interpreter on the call, but we are trying to set him in the right language channel. Please do introduce yourself in the chat box. We might be a lot of us on this call today, so we don't have time to open the microphones for everyone. So if you can include your name, organization, and country in the chat box, that would be great. And in addition, just in between brackets, if you could add your preferred language, so just EN for English, FR for French, ES for Spanish, we'll be then able to allocate you to the right breakout group afterwards. So that would be brilliant. And we are not organizing this as a webinar on Zoom. So we did this on purpose to make it interactive, but that also means microphones can be open. So please remember to mute yourself when speakers are talking and open your microphones only during Q&A discussions and during the breakout group discussions. Otherwise, please all stay on mute unless you are a speaker. So that is it for the logistics. I hope we managed to sort out the Francophone interpretation in the meantime. So a big welcome to all in any country, any area you are logging from. It is a real pleasure to have all of you. This is a really important year for us as civil society to seize. A year when we can engage with our governments, with other duty bearers, when we can encourage them to make commitments, to take action, to hold themselves and ourselves and others accountable to commitments or actions that we said we would do to end malnutrition. It's also a year when we can redress the bar and build back better after the COVID pandemic, which has hit really badly many areas, including the area of nutrition. And it is also a year when we, civil society network, can work more collaboratively, more efficiently together, joining efforts, exchanging experiences and best practice to together implement our new or upcoming 5-year strategy for the network. So it's really an opportunity to work together in seizing this year of action and contributing to our mission. I will soon give the floor to Gerda, our Sun Movement coordinator, but I just wanted to introduce that the purpose of today's webinar, juggling the screens. Just wanted to introduce the purpose of the webinar. which is to, of course, inform civil society network members about the Year of Action and opportunities to engage throughout the year, to equip you with the means, tools, and space to engage throughout the Year of Action, to learn from regions and countries, and that's why we have breakout room discussions afterwards, so that you can hear from each other's best practices and how you are engaging throughout the year. And lastly, to offer the opportunity for you to raise, ask questions or offer suggestions to our panelists today. So we have a pretty packed agenda with now a welcome keynote address from Gerda Verberg, our Sun Movement Coordinator. Then we will have Christine Camper from CARE and Anish Irshad from Nutrition International talk about the Year of Action, why it's important, and what are the opportunities for civil society to engage meaningfully throughout the year. Then Charlotte Martineau from the Global Nutrition Report will present more about commitment-making processes, how pledges are made, how you can encourage governments to make commitments. And then we will break out into groups to talk a bit more about civil society engagement, hear about your experience, and share about our plans and priorities throughout the Year of Action. And then we'll hear more about country and regional engagement from our regional coordinators before talking about next steps. So rather packed agenda. So all the interventions will be limited. We'll keep them quite short so that we give enough time for discussion with you. So with no further ado, and a big thank you to our Sun Movement Coordinator, Gerda Verberg, the floor is yours. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm extremely proud to welcome you all to this important meeting of the Sun Movement Civil Society Network and all those people who are connected or interested to join. Because the Civil Society Network is really stepping up in, they were already very active in Nutrition for Growth, but the way you are stepping up right now in the Food Systems Summit, participating in the national dialogues, but also bringing ideas and suggestions to the global action tracks, it's really admirable. And my request to you is please look at these both summits to strengthen each other. What I can see is that some people try to frame the food system as a food focus, where agriculture comes together with food and nutrition is part of it, and the N4G as a kind of health summit. Don't do this. Please move everything and make the food system a springboard for N4G and the other way around, because we need both summits to position nutrition well. Both summits are country summits. So hopefully you will and continue to focus on what needs to happen at the country level and how can we encourage or support or push the government and politicians to take their responsibility to nourish their people well and to support their people well. And it all starts with nutrition. But also be active at the global level, because at global level, we need to do the strong advocacy that is required, especially since we are in the atmosphere of building forward better from the COVID crisis. And let me give one example, of course, two examples. Of course, we hope that during Nutrition for Growth, there will be a lot of financial commitments for nutrition, but I also think that at the global level, we need to strengthen the position of nutrition, because it is so central to every development at country level and at community level. So for instance, in the OECD, we need to work together to get in the ODA nutrition as a higher priority between the DAC members. So we have started to work on it, but I'm extremely keen to work with our networks to get it done and to make sure that nutrition as the game changer, not only for health and sustainable development goal number 2, but for all sustainable development goals, that it gets the central position where it can prioritize healthy children, healthy babies, and support their healthy mothers and families. Having said this, I would like to also to request you, please come together as civil society organizations from time to time. I have the opportunity to look what other stakeholders are doing. I have to say the private sector is quite well organized. And I think also when it comes to looking at, for instance, the food systems from a planetary perspective and a nutrition perspective, from time to time, you need to come together. And if need be, I'm very happy to support you in getting this organized so that from both ends, from the nutrition perspective, but also from the planet perspective, you can work together, not only in the Food System Summit, but also in all the other COPs and important meetings like CBD, like COP26. It all needs to come together in a joint systems change. So please focus this afternoon on what you can do, but be assured that I stand ready to wherever I can to support the civil society. Because let me emphasize one thing that I usually say, but it's important to underscore it here. Without civil society, no change at country level, no change in nutrition, no change in food systems. So we need you, we need each other in order to make the politicians responsible, to make private sector acting more responsible and responsive when it comes to healthy food, and to work together to make this world a better place for everyone. Thank you very much and have a very good webinar.
Many thanks, Gerda, for these opening remarks, and fantastic to have your support and have you back civil society engagement. I will now give the floor to Christine Campo from Care to National, and who is also the Sherpa to the UN Food System Summit Action Track number 4 on advancing equitable livelihoods, and she is joining very early, so many thanks, Christine. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Campo. First of all, thank you for joining us today. I hear someone with an echo, so if you can mute your mic, that would be great. Your being here with us today means you're taking time away from your loved ones, your pets, and your jobs, so thank you so much for that. I also want to thank Alexandra and her team for the fantastic role they are playing to assemble us here today. These online gatherings are a lot of work to organize, and I especially appreciate the translation services that they're providing with us today. And thanks to Gerda, who just spoke, for highlighting the importance of the summits and how each summit is a chance, it's an opportunity to highlight nutrition. What I've been asked to do today is provide a snapshot of the calendar events in 2021. Where are these moments where we can highlight nutrition? So let's get started. Alexandra, if you can pull up my first slide, please. Awesome. As you can see, and I'm happy to send around this presentation after if it's not clear. As you can see, 2021 will be a busy one. There'll be lots of opportunities for the global community to engage and mobilize our collective efforts for greater accountability, policy, and financial outcomes for nutrition. But we can't be everywhere. So how do we as the Sun Civil Society Network agree on a common set of messages and divide and conquer at these various institutions and platforms that are dealing with the issues that we care about? For example, in that first bubble on our left, you'll see that earlier this year, several of us worked on a set of voluntary guidelines on food systems for nutrition in the Committee on World Food Security, and that work was built on the high-level panel of experts report. So how do we bring that work across the year? Was something missing? If so, how do we amplify what was missing or use the rest of the year to amplify what was missing? Today, we're going to focus on two very special moments that are happening this year. I'm going to zero in on the UN Food System Summit, and then my good friend and colleague Danish is going to talk a bit more about the Nutrition for Growth Summit, which you all know very well. If we can move to the next slide, please. So what is the UN Food System Summit? So the UN Secretary General called for a summit to look specifically at food systems because we all must work together to transform the way the world produces, consumes, and thinks about food. We also need to think about how we grow food, the way it's marketed, and how that affects our planet, our health, and our jobs. Action Track 4, which I'm the Sherpa for, works specifically on advancing equitable livelihoods. So how are all these people that are working across food systems going to have human rights respected, going to have their ability to work protected? So that's what we're looking at in Action Track 4. But I think today we're going to focus a bit more on Action Track 1, which is the nutrition track. So the UN Secretary General hosted summits like this before. We've had climate summits, we've had food summits, and a lot of similar events. So it's a moment in time in September with a pre-summit in July. And that's a moment to catalyze action around the Sustainable Development Goals. It aims to unite several intergovernmental platforms that work on these issues, as you would have seen in that last slide, on food, climate, and trade. It isn't necessarily replacing any of these structures, but rather bringing them together and the outcomes of these structures together at the highest levels of the UN system. We have all witnessed the inequalities that COVID-19 has only further exposed. So we need to rally together and use this current collective crisis as a moment to make the necessary shifts to prepare for future ones. So in this slide ahead of you, and I'm going to move quickly to the next slide, but you'll see there's some guidance again from the Committee on World Food Security's high-level panel of experts. It's tasked with developing the latest science and guidance and provides a framework, our North Star, to where we are moving in September. So how do we make these necessary systemic changes that you would have seen in that last slide? So in this one that is now ahead of you, the UN Secretary General developed action tracks to dive deeper into the elements that impact food systems and the shifts that need to happen at all levels. You'll see there's 5 thematic action tracks that are helping to shape this process. By the end of last year, each action track had established a leadership team and they had defined their scope of work. A lot of you are involved in some of these leadership teams, so thank you for so much, because I know it's been an incredible amount of work to pull the ideas in the community together. I know, for example, in our action track, on Action Track 4, we need to understand whose livelihoods we were even talking about and who we are seeking to help before we even knew what we could ask the general public for as far as solutions and propositions and ideas of best examples that work. So once we knew the who, we opened up that series of consultation to know how. All of us as action tracks, and I know several of you have been involved in them, have hosted series, at least 50 different consultations, either with governments or the private sector, civil society specific, to collect ideas and then to go back to these communities and say, this is what we heard from you. Did we get it right? We also have online surveys and any way that we can reach out, because we realize we're getting a lot of information overload these days while we're all in our respective homes. And it's important to make sure people still feel they have the ways to reach out to us. And we also appreciate that these consultations, like the one that we're involved in today, are only accessible to those who have a strong internet connection. They're time consuming. And as I said earlier, they take time away from our other responsibilities. And they also further compound the inherent biases. Who has control over the mobile phone in a household? So that way, in moments like today, we can really only skim what is happening. So if you'll pass to the next slide, we'll see that this is a good opportunity to take advantage of the subnational, national, and regional level consultations. In this next slide, you'll see, Alex, that it's a massive area. Oh, sorry, we can actually skip this one. This is just talking about the different working groups, but yeah, perfect. We don't have enough time to go into all that. I was getting ambitious, but that'll be in your inbox. So by going out to country, the massive area for engaging in the local realities, partnerships, politics, pressures that you guys all know so well. And they can either be organized in government-led dialogues or independent dialogues. The one thing we're witnessing, which has been really interesting, how governments are selecting their national level conveners. I can hear somebody, so if you don't mind muting if you're not speaking. For example, in our line of work in nutrition, our focal points, our Sun government focal points often come from ag or food ministries. Whereas when you think of food systems, as Gerda rightly said, we're thinking health, we're thinking livelihoods, we're thinking the environment. So it's really been whole of government planning for these in-country discussions. So it's as much labor as it is education, as it is agriculture, as it is health, as it is finance. So it's really important to get involved in these discussions because we're reshaping the way that governments and civil society think about food systems at large. And it's also been really interesting to watch these government conveners join a lot of these independent dialogues because they also know they don't have the outreach that a lot of civil society organizations can bring together. We definitely have another flavor and another level of expertise and understanding of the problem. So it's really important to be organizing our own, but to also encourage the governments to be joining our dialogues. It's been great to use the existing Sun networks and structures that we have at national and subnational level to really get engaged in these processes and organize around these processes. Because we know as Sun, that's really where the rubber hits the road is in these country level discussions and actions and partnerships. So in my second to last slide, Alex, if you don't mind moving to the last, the next one, perfect. It's just a short timeline of where we are right now in the solution sourcing between now and the summit. We will continue because of all the national and subnational and regional dialogues that are happening. Solutions will continue to come in through the action tracks until the day of the summit in September. And even afterwards, because these conversations, the summit really only kickstarts a lot of this discussion. So know that even after September, these conversations will continue to happen. But until September, any great solutions that come up, I know as Action Tracks, we are reading through all the summaries. We are trying to get involved in any dialogue that we can to really hear from you and understand and lift that up to the global level so that all countries and all stakeholders are hearing from your good examples. So there was a first round of that, wave one in March. I think there's a little flag on that screen. You'll see where we took a lot of what we had heard in this first round from you. We drafted up, or we had some of you drafted up in between the action tracks, and we presented initial 20 propositions that we had all heard from each of our action tracks. So we had about 100 things that we said, here's what we heard from you in wave one. What are we missing? What could be done better? What partnerships can be created around these? We'll have a second wave in May. You'll see another flag there. And then we have a pre-summit the third week of July. But as I said, solutions, propositions, ideas should continue to keep flowing in. This is our really important moment to keep highlighting nutrition between now and September. And as Gerda rightly said, use that as a springboard for the Nutrition for Growth Summit. So last slide is just to say thank you so much again for organizing this webinar and letting me share my thoughts a little bit on how best to engage. And perfect. Yep, now we're going to move to Danish on the Nutrition for Growth Summit. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Christine. This was a really insightful presentation, and I hope it gives a really interesting glimpse into how to engage throughout this year of action, particularly through the angle or the entry point of the UN Food Systems Summit and all the opportunities it provides. So I will now give the floor to Danish Yershad from Nutrition International, who is also a member of the Nutrition for Growth Advisory Group and our Civil Society Network Regional Coordinator for Asia. Danish, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gerda, Christine, Alex, for setting scene for my presentation. Next, please. Today, we will be talking about history of Nutrition for Growth Summit and progress made so far, what are thematic areas, And then we shall also discuss principle of engagement and why they are important for us. And at the end of presentation, we would love to listen your reflection and respond to your questions as well. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So as you know, Nutrition for Growth Summit is a global pledging movement to drive greater action toward ending all forms of malnutrition and helping to ensure everyone everywhere can reach their full potential. The first N4G summit was held in London in 2013, where over 100 stakeholders endorsed the global N4G compact and pledged more than 4 billion US dollar in new nutrition specific projects. During second summit in 2017, stakeholders gathered in Milan to track against pledges made in London, take stock of progress made, and further build the coalition of global nutrition champions. Since previous commitments expired at the end of 2020, so the Tokyo Summit is critical to make new commitments and avoid any cliff edge in funding that would be tragic for the malnourished population of the world. The Tokyo N4G Summit, which was initially scheduled in December 2020, now will be held in December 2021. And this summit will continue to lead the effort to end malnutrition in all its forms, and focus will be on critical roles of food, health, and social protection system in delivering good nutrition for all. The government of Japan is actually encouraging commitment to be made at the summit with focus on 3 core areas. The first one is making nutrition integral to universal health coverage, because we know that investing in nutrition services in health system can lead to greater well-being and more equitable development. The second focus area is building food systems that promote healthy diets and nutrition, ensure livelihoods of producers, and are climate smart, because we know that food the world produce and consume impact both people and planet. And third key area is addressing malnutrition effectively in fragile and conflict affected contexts, because we know that people impacted by violence and instability are especially vulnerable to malnutrition, and young children in these settings, they need special attention. And the other 2 areas are data-driven accountability and innovative financing for nutrition. These areas are actually cross-thematic. In addition, we expect government of Japan to encourage reflection of the complexities and challenges and pressures brought by the coronavirus pandemic. In order to prepare tangible recommendation, government of Japan established 5 working groups on health, food, resilience, data-driven accountability, and financing. All these working groups finalized their recommendation and submitted to government of Japan in Sen Movement last year. And then government of Japan constituted N4G advisory group with representation of UN, donors, business, academia, civil society, to enable the most efficient engagement of the wide range of actors that could make pledge at Nutrition for Growth Summit. Catherine and myself are representing civil society at this N4G advisory group. In order to ensure transparent engagement in N4G Summit, principle of engagement, which are aligned with Sun principle of engagement, were agreed and published. We'll talk about the principle of engagement later during my presentation. And N4G vision and roadmap was also finalized and updated in December 2020. Civil society shared their recommendation around a roadmap, which were accepted by government of Japan, and our recommendations were incorporated in final version. And yeah, you must be aware about N4G Spring Board meeting or launch of N4G Year of Action, which was held on 14th December by government of Japan and Bangladesh and Canadian government. Next slide. Yeah. So N4G principle of engagement are really important for all nutrition stakeholders to ensure that N4G 2020 delivers credible, sustainable, and well-supported outcomes for nutrition via public and private action. And these principle of engagement are actually part of N4G commitment making guide. And these N4G principle of engagement were actually developed through extensive consultative process with several months of consultation with input from government, international organizations, civil society, and businesses. Next slide, please. So these are main 10 principle of engagement of SUN. On the basis of these principle of engagement, N4G principle of engagement are designed both to reflect the SUN principle of engagement while elaborating how they will be applied at the summit. So there are 5 summit-specific principles. The first one is process of developing commitment must engage a wide range of actors in open and transparent consultation. These the commitment should be developed from the outset using consultative process, including the private sector, government, multilateral organization, and civil society. And this also includes commitment from business membership organization, like business associations, as a means of resetting norms and achieving scale. The second principle of engagement is all stakeholders' commitments need to be smart and significant. The commitment should not be vague. All stakeholders must pledge smart and significant commitments which could contribute to achieving internationally agreed goals, targets, strategies, and standards on nutrition. The criteria listed in this principle are actually, they are actually further aligned in commitment making guide, and GNR colleagues will be speaking more about this in their presentation. Third area is public policy must be evidence-based, established by government through inclusive participatory process. And fourth principle is around, that is around breast milk substitutes. Breast milk substitutes manufacturers need to commit an action plan to achieve full compliance with the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. And some of you might be aware that there were some divided opinion between civil society and the private sector colleagues. So we have been discussing on this, and there were some issues on unethical promotion of BMS due to mistrust and doubts about each other's position regarding around this issue. So, so we have been in conversation with private sector colleagues, and discussions are still going on. So, as per N4G principle of engagement, consideration will be given to inviting BMS companies to the summit if they show evidence of having taken a first step that goes above and beyond the company's current policies, commitment, and practice before the start of summit. State publicly commit to work towards full compliance with code and subsequent relevant World Health Assembly resolution by 2030 in terms of both policy and practices, and set publicly a clear published action plan with milestones and agree to its progress being independently monitored and result published. So there is a Meridian Working Group, which is a platform for discussion between civil society and BMS companies and UN organization on the action plan. So there are some discussion going on. So maybe other colleagues can shed light on that. And fifth principle is excluded companies or industries cannot represent their business association at the summit. So business associations that have members from excluded industries or companies which can be evaluated based on the UNICEF criteria such as arms and tobacco can participate in summit to deliver commitments that meets SMART criteria but cannot be represented by these excluded members or by companies that do not meet the criteria outlined in the principle 4. So thank you. Next slide, please.
Danish, if that's okay, if you can go through the other slides rather quickly to allow enough time for Q&A. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe you can move to next slide, which is more important. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Here we would like to share some mobilization activities which CSS can actually carry out at national level. First of all, they should assess mobilization opportunities at national and subnational level. Then they can develop mobilization plan, engaging with multi-stakeholder platforms, Sun networks, and other like-minded CSOs coalitions. Like in Pakistan, we were working with National Development Alliance, and we had some joint plan for N4G mobilization as well as for UN Food Summit UN Food System Summit independent dialogues. Develop policy briefs and advocacy material to underline the importance of investment in nutrition. You can engage with the parliamentary forums like standing committees, SDG task force in your parliament. You can also work with parliamentary champions to prioritize nutrition agenda in national policies and strategies and plans. You can encourage country leadership to participate in commitment making and pledge making movements. And a series of events are planned. And in my last slide, you can see some of those events. CSS can advocate to make policy and financial commitment before or during N4G summit hosted by Government of Japan in December 2020. Next slide, please. Alex. Yeah. So here are some commitment making movements listed here. You can read them later. Next slide, please. And here are some movement building movements, momentum building movements. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you very much. We had a lot of content, but I tried to summarize within time. So we would be happy to respond to your questions. We would welcome your reflections as well. Catherine, Christine, and myself are here to respond to your questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Danish, for your presentation. Extremely useful. Apologies, we had to rush you a little bit. That is just to allow enough time for question and answers, because I'm sure there will be many, and I see many pouring in the chat box as well. So now, before passing the floor to Charlotte Martineau from GNR, who will be talking about the commitment making processes, I would like to ask anyone if you have questions for our two speakers, so Danish and Christine, sorry, and Gerda, if she's still on the call. And we will try to address a few here, and then we'll take others in writing, and we'll send the answers to questions that have been left unanswered via email afterwards. So if you can raise your hand, I will be open to open your microphone. Otherwise, we'll take questions in the chat box. Otherwise, I'll ask perhaps one of my team members if they can prioritize a few questions while people are thinking of their questions. Was there anything you saw in the chat box?
Yeah, Alex, maybe we can have question after GNR presentation as well, because there might be some question related to GNR, and we can give some time to think
Absolutely.
about questions. Yeah,
that's a good idea. So in the meantime, so we'll give the floor to Charlotte, and in the meantime, please do ask questions in the chat box, or just have a think, and we'll open your microphone. And thank you again, Danish and previous speakers. Great. So I'll now give the floor to Charlotte to talk about the commitment making processes. Charlotte, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra and Danish and Gerda, as well as Christine, for the different speeches. Actually, I can now run through the presentation. So my name is Charlotte Martineau, and I am a part of the development initiatives team working on the GNR, and I'm focusing on engagement. So I think today what's important to most of you might have seen some of the presentation we have done, but I would like to put you back into context. So the GNR was created in 2013, and that was a tool to track stakeholders' commitment and inspire action. So exactly what we're trying to do at the moment, right? And since then, next slide, please. We have produced a number of documents. Do you mind putting the second slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So in short, the three major outputs that the GNR produces every year is a report which highlights progress that has been made towards the targets, as well as the challenges that remain. We have as well country nutrition profiles that you can find online, where you have more detailed data at global, regional, and country level. And we publish every year as well the Nutrition for Growth Commitment Tracker, which would give you the latest progress and data made by different constituencies on commitments made at previous commitment moments. So next slide, please. You can find the current commitment tracker online. And I'm not going to go into details, but just to say that this has been updated in December 2020, with a cutoff date on the 31st of May 2020. And that is really looking at the commitments made since 2013 in London and Milan by the different stakeholders. So it is important to look at in terms of background information for this year of action, but it's not exactly the same mechanism that we will use this time. Next slide, please. So what is different this year is that before, the GNR has been created after the summit, and it's the first time that we're involved before a summit in order to prepare and support commitment making. And this is something that we've started to do. We've started to work on in 2019 with the different working groups that were organized in preparation of the Nutrition for Growth Summit. Now, it's important to note as well, and Gerda mentioned that very clearly, that this is a year of action and we need to take any opportunity that we have to make commitments. And so in this spirit, what the GNR is proposing is not only a Nutrition for Growth accountability mechanism, but a year of action, a nutrition accountability framework that is looking beyond the Nutrition for Growth and takes the opportunity of any moment. So we're taking some principles from the Nutrition for Growth and building on that so that commitment makers can take any opportunity along the year to make their commitments, and that still is recognized in this accountability framework. So the ambition this year for the GNR is really to drive stronger and smarter commitments all along the year. We want to continue to remain a go-to resource for accountability. So when anyone is looking for where are we in terms of the nutrition accountability, this is what we want to ensure that you have one place where to find the information. So this year, the GNR will build and lead the nutrition accountability framework. And that means collaborate, leverage, and realign existing accountability mechanisms to try to avoid this fragmentation and centralize information. And what that means defining and developing eligibility and qualifying criteria. In short, what that means is which are the commitments that can and will be monitored. We aim as well at facilitating the registration. That's why I'll come back to that. We have registration tools and we're aiming that this all is done online and I'll come back to the guide and the form. The idea as well is to enable a better reporting on progress on an annual basis. At the moment, we're relying on annual surveys and we would like to make that a bit more systematic and easy for the commitment makers to report as well as for us to do the analysis. And so all of those elements will be published as we develop them throughout this year. Next slide, please. So to facilitate the registration process, we have developed a guide and a form that we launched for the December event, the Springboard meeting that Danish mentioned, organized by Government of Canada and Bangladesh. These documents are available on the Make a Commitment page on the N4G website, so don't hesitate, you will have more details. And be assured that both documents have been endorsed by Government of Japan, and they're in line with what Danish just presented about the Nutrition Commitment Making Guide, as well as the vision and roadmap of Government of Japan. So this is what I meant by we're building on those documents available for the Nutrition for Growth in order to make an accountability framework that enables stakeholders to make a commitment for nutrition at any point in time this year. So these are the steps that you can use yourself or support others to make when they want to make a commitment. Firstly, look at the guide, make and formulate a smart commitment. I'll come back to that. Register online. Please ensure that everybody registers online. We do have a possibility to share a PDF for a template if it's necessary or if online is complicated. So come back to us if there is an issue with this online form. And finally, and I think it's a great role that the CSOs can play, is ensure that people understand when they make a commitment, they will have to play the game and report on their progress. It's really important that when we make a commitment, we're just not promising, we're promising to do and report as well. Next slide, please. So what is in the commitment registration guide? This is a step-by-step guide to help register the commitment. The guide highlights what you need to know before making a commitment. So that goes back to what Danish presented, the principles of engagement, the different areas of commitment types. It describes the form as well and provide some examples of registered commitments. In short, to qualify for registration, and this is where we're going beyond the N2G, the commitment must be SMART. So you all know the SMART criteria, but they're re-explained in the guide. It needs to align with national priorities. It needs to align with the N4G principles of engagement. And you need to commit as well to report on progress, because it will be reported and put publicly available on the GNR website. And so all this is enabled by using the form. Next slide, please. So on the form, this form is here to register concrete actions that stakeholders are committing to undertake to improve nutrition. This is important to understand that completion of the form is required in order to register a commitment and therefore to be then reported on. The GNR doesn't have the capacity to go and just have a look at every event this year and just pick whoever is making a commitment. So if you hear commitments are made, you can ensure in your advocacy that the commitment maker has understood that mentioning the commitment doesn't only mean that it will be registered. They have to fill in the form. Secondly, using the form enables stakeholders to make smart commitments. And on that, we've worked with MQSN Plus colleagues and GNR using the experience of everybody and the previous tracking in order to define the different sections of the form and ensure that all the information is enabling a proper and strong accountability. So in this form, you'll see that there. Can you go to the next slide? Because that's this one is the guide slide. Thank you. You will see that the form is divided in 3 sections. You have the first one, which specifies the entity, who is the entity, what constituency they're from, and who is representing that entity. So we have a strong connection with the people who are making commitments as well as reporting. Then a section on how to formulate commitments with a reminder of the criteria, the type, the focus, as well as a section on commitment ingredients, which is what enables us to ensure that the commitment is smart. And finally, you have the full commitments. Stakeholders don't have to fill in, it's not compulsory to fill in everything, but really this section is enabling us to have enough information to do that strong monitoring. And finally, a section to give us feedback. We are very aware that these tools have been developed at haste in December. However, we are working towards strengthening them, reviewing them, and piloting them. And then the last slide, and I will finish on that because it has the links. So don't hesitate to visit our website and contact us as well if you have any question. But be assured that we are working towards reviewing classification, assessment, and qualifiers. We will be piloting commitment registration tools, the guide and the form after review of first round of feedback. We will develop as well an online platform in order to be able to enable this, this registration as well as the follow-up and the reporting. And we will as well be creating a technical accountability working group in order to enable different constituencies to be represented and for us to be able to leverage the existing mechanisms. It will take a lot of time to build that framework. But we believe that the tools that we have in place, at least for this year, are ready to enable a good start for accountability for the Year of Action. So I'm going to stop here and very happy to take questions. Back to you, Alexandra.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Charlotte, for such a clear presentation on the commitment-making processes. I'm sure there'll be many questions, but you've also managed to clarify something rather complex. I see, so we're now going to open the floor for a short, maybe 10-minute Q&A discussion. And I will take the discussions I saw in the chat first, but please do continue sending your questions. Even if we don't have time to address them now, we will address them by email afterwards. So I will take the first two questions I see. Apologies if I missed some. The first one in French, I'll translate from a colleague in Niger. How can we best support and accompany countries, high burden countries, in fragile and conflict affected states? So that's a rather general question that any speaker can answer. And then another question from Pat on the Food Systems Summit specifically. We have not heard the voices of the people who are affected by malnutrition and food insecurity in the dialogues. Is this something that the summit is looking into? In terms of the Year of Action, could we talk about the famine that has now been declared in 2 countries and the multiple countries with over 30 million people in IPC phase 4? And lastly, a third question also from Pat on nutrition for growth. How well developed is the framework and narrative to prioritize the furthest behind? So I will ask Catherine or Danish to answer the question on N4G. Christine, if she's still here, on the Food Systems Summit. And anyone can answer the question on how to support conflict and fragile affected.
Alexandra, if you allow me, I would like to answer this question, this final question.
Please do. Why don't you start, Gerda?
Thank you very much. Yeah, let me come in here because famines cannot wait. They cannot wait until the Food Systems Summit. They cannot wait until Nutrition for Growth action right now. Action is crucial right now, and all the humanitarian organizations are acting with the donors. It's not enough. It's almost never enough. But there needs to be a game changer here, which is that from the very beginning, the people affected by the famine need to be involved already in the humanitarian. So that shoulder to shoulder with the humanitarian people, they can start to plant their own food or start to become resilient again. And that the humanitarian people at a certain moment can hand over to the development people in a way that is owned also by the people themselves, by the communities, by the regions, etc. And this must be the game changer that need to be introduced right now at every negotiation table or funding table, but needs to be nailed down in the Nutrition for Growth and in the Food Systems Summit. A systems change, because we cannot continue to go one by one in a siloed approach. And this is the lesson we have to share, and we need to take it from here. Thank you. Back to you, Alexandra.
Sorry, could not unmute myself, typical. Excellent, thank you so much, Gerda, for your answer. I don't know if Christine is still on the call. Probably not, because she had another presentation to deliver. So I'll ask Danish or Catherine if you want to answer the N4G question.
Yeah, regarding nutrition in fragile and conflict-affected situations, a working group was actually constituted, and this working group has developed a set of recommendations which have been submitted to government of Japan and Sun Movement, and this is priority area for the summit. Catherine, if you would like to add anything into this.
Yeah, thank you, Danish. I think on the question around how developed a narrative and framework is to prioritise the furthest behind, I think for the Year of Action at large, and for the Nutrition for Growth Summit specifically, if you take a look at the commitment making guidance, you should see that the principle of ensuring that we reach the furthest behind and that we leave no one behind at large is very much there. But I would say I think it's a great responsibility and remit for civil society, for all of us, to ensure that that narrative comes through. And as we're engaging our governments and other decision makers and other actors in the development of their commitments,
it's something that we can be very proactive with to ensure that this is coming through as a priority, to ensure that communities are engaged in these conversations, that actors are making commitments to ensure that the information that they gather is disaggregated so that we can understand the way that the different inequalities that are faced are understood. So whilst I think the framework does reflect the importance of prioritising the furthest behind and ensuring no one is left behind, there's a lot that we can do to ensure that commitments are made that actually progress that agenda. So I think something for us to keep in mind there.
There you go. Sorry, I have too many screens open now. So I will ask my team to track, because I see there are questions around commitment making processes, which Charlotte has already responded to. Thanks a lot, Charlotte. So I'll go further down. It's hard to track all the questions. I'll take the one from Judith. As this is an open process, is there a committee that would select the different commitments in this case, or even guide the countries to make them more smart?
Thank you. I think it's a very good question, Judith. And this is one of the things that the GNR is going to look at with the piloting and reviewing of the guide and the form. Because I think that the two things here is what level of support the GNR is going to provide any entity in order to make their commitment smart. And this is something that we will do. But we will have to rely as well on support from different organizations. The Sun has been very a great ally on that one. Civil society organizations that are supporting others to make commitments can support us in ensuring that this form is used, which is our main tool to make smart commitments. Now, the other side of this question is looking at how do we manage multiple commitments at different levels in country. At the moment, the GNR doesn't have the answer. The different groups that we rely on are first the independent expert group, which is from the GNR, and they're the ones who are curating commitments and checking and then monitoring and making the assessment. So they'll provide an independent analysis. But they're not the ones to say if a government should make one commitment at national level or multiple at subnational level. They can make some recommendations, but they need to remain independent. Another body I see that can play a role in that, in questioning who's best to support these processes of negotiation within country, is the Technical Accountability Working Group. Because we're hoping to have representatives of different constituencies. And this is the type of things that, because it's so related to the policy and diplomatic contexts within countries, that I think we would need to rely on that group as well to help to find realistic solutions. Over to you, Alexandra.
Thanks a lot, Charlotte. I see other questions are coming in, but I suggest you address these in breakout groups. And if they're not addressed there, we will answer them via email afterwards. We'll do a Q&A document. But thanks a lot. Do keep posting your questions in here. What we will do now, and thanks a lot to the speakers who answered the questions, is we are going to break you out into groups. We'll create 4 groups in English, 1 in French, 1 in Spanish. And you'll be asked to nominate a note taker and to send your notes to me, because we won't have time to feedback in plenary. So I'll be sending the notes of the groups afterwards, alongside the recording and the presentations. And the facilitators will ask you to cover these 3 questions. The first one is, do you know if your country or civil society organization or civil society alliance is planning to make any commitments during the Nutrition for Growth Year of Action? The second one is, what are your engagement plans and priorities for the Year of Action? And lastly, what more could be done to prompt governments to engage and make commitments? So I will now break you into groups. As I do that, I'm conscious that I wasn't sure of the preferred language of everyone, so I did my best. But if you are not assigned to the right group, please log out, and Zoe will log you back into the right group. If you are left in limbo somewhere on Zoom, please do reach out to Zoe, who will remain in plenary and who will allocate you to the right group. Great, I hope this works and have very rich discussions. I suggest you took 25 minutes. So it is 9 past right now. Let's reconvene. I'm not very good at this, at 35 past, if that works for everyone. Yes, I think I got that right. And I will close the groups after that time. Thank you very much, everyone, and apologies for the logistical issues. After 1 year into Zoom, we are still not there. Thank you.
We'll just give it another minute or so for the others to return. Right, I think people are coming back now. Fantastic. I will hand you back to Alex.
Great, I hope that worked for everyone and nobody was left on the side. I will put the presentation back on. There we go. There you go. So I hope you all had very rich discussions in your group. We certainly did. It was fantastic to hear everybody's perspective from different countries, from youth-led organizations, humanitarian assistance, and the amazing work that you're doing. And some concerns, of course, a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, but also civil society is already seizing opportunities to engage, which is really brilliant to see. And we know that a lot more needs to be done, and we'll try to work collaboratively together to make the most of this year of action. So all the note takers will be sending me your notes, please, so I can compile them, and we will be sending these notes alongside the presentation and the recording and other materials. So please do take notes of my email address here for the note takers. Fantastic. I would so love to hear your feedback, but in the interest of time, I will now give the floor to our 4 regional coordinators who will give a very brief overview of regional engagement, and then we'll talk about next steps before closing. So in no particular order, because I saw Judith just now. Judith, would you like to start?
Okay, thank you, Alexandra. I hope that you can hear me very well. Okay, for West and Central Africa region, we are trying to work with some of the countries. So we have a kind of focus on some of the countries. We just selected 7 countries where we would like to make the focus to support them to design smart commitment. So we started this process, I can say, more than 1 year ago with the different countries, trying to have this kind of evaluation of the previous commitment of the countries, and then trying to see what is the current status of the country about nutrition issues, and what will be the more relevant commitment for the country. So we did this work, I can say, with civil society, but also with other members of the multi-stakeholder platform. So we had the chance to have some of the UN network attending to the discussion, also some MPs attending to the discussion with us. And then we had one person representing the Secretariat of Sun Movement attending to the discussion, and donors also with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Canadian attending to the discussion. So with this, we have this kind of roadmap per country to see how we could support the different countries I was speaking about. So the 5 and 7 countries now we have to just move forward at the country level with the process and see which kind of commitment the country could take and what can be the role of civil society supporting the country to design the different commitment. So currently what we had in mind to do is to organize a regional workshop with all the countries to see whether the previous roadmap have been implemented and what is the current status in the countries and what we could do to support more of the different countries. So within the countries, perhaps I can just say we have Senegal, we have Niger, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Mauritania, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso. And yeah, so we will follow this before the end of the month with the different countries to see how we could better organize our support to the countries to design or to just continue supporting the country for the design of commitment. For sure, we will also think about what kind of commitment civil society can also do, as we just see that it's possible to register also commitment on behalf of civil society, and then we could share the different information with you. I will stop there for the different information coming from countries. Thank you.
Many thanks, Judith, and fantastic engagement in West and Central Africa. I will now give the floor to Christina Matthews to give us the Eastern and Southern African perspective.
Thank you so much, Alex. So I will give for Eastern Southern Africa. This is Christine. So the Eastern Southern Africa is taking, focusing a lot on the opportunity of the UN Food System Summit, and the civil society networks are playing a key part in the national dialogues in the lead up to the UN Food System Summit, most especially focusing on action track 1 and 2. The approach that we are using in the Eastern Southern Africa is to conduct a number of district level engagements and consultations, which then lead into the national dialogue. The reason why we are doing this way is to create awareness as well as provide a chance for the small scale holder farmers and other stakeholders, especially that are not at the national level, to provide their voice and contribute to the food systems agenda in the country. The progress so far regarding the UN Food System Summit country consultation. In Zambia, we've been able to conduct 3 successful dialogues, 2 at the district level, as well as 1 at the national level. At the district and national level, we are focusing a lot on the district as well as country administration, the relevant stakeholders, as well as small-scale farmers to be a part of our dialogue. Among some of the action points that were proposed in these discussions with the various stakeholders in Zambia was having the government introduce food that withstands the poorer weather conditions that are happening in Zambia, as well as having the government champion the crop diversification in the country. So those are some of the actions that came out strongly in our dialogues with the various stakeholders in Zambia. So moving forward in Zambia, what we're looking at with the Leave No One Behind policy is having other consultative meetings with some of the stakeholders whose voice we need, especially the youth. So we are hoping to conduct another dialogue, especially with the youth, trying to interest them into the food system of the future. So those are some of that, and also playing a clear support role in the national dialogue that is being organized by the Ministry of Agriculture. In Malawi, we are planning to conduct 2 independent dialogues, as well as at the district level, and also be part of the national level dialogue, which is organized by the Ministry of Agriculture. So there is another dialogue that an independent dialogue that we want to conduct that will not be led by the government. That one we are looking at working with concern and care to make sure that we have another civil society organization specific dialogue, especially at the national level. In Kenya, a convener has been appointed as and this is the principal secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. So we are trying to engage with the principal secretary to ensure that we as the civil society, especially in the nutrition family, are able to raise our voices. So far, 2 national dialogues have been conducted in Kenya, but not led specifically by the nutrition community. So we are hoping to conduct another, specifically on action track 1 and 2, to ensure that the voice of the nutrition stakeholders comes out strongly in this discussion. So we also plan to engage at the district level to ensure that we don't miss the voices from the people who are most affected by the food system. In Zimbabwe, planning meetings are on the way, and we are hoping to also conduct independent dialogues. That goes for Uganda too. We are hoping that by the end of June, yes, we would be in a position to hold a regional level dialogue that will bring together all the feedback that has come from all the national consultations, so that we have one position as the East and Southern Africa that will be representative of our joint advocacy moving together. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Christine, for such a rich overview of the region. Fantastic work. I will now give the floor to, I think, Carolina from the Latin American and Caribbean region. If it's someone else, please do let me know. I think Carolina was on the call. She might have logged off. Is there anyone else from Latin America who would like to give the regional overview?
Hola, el resumen lo va a hacer Maritza.
Caro,
Sí.
creo
Sí.
que no es, digamos, solo, digamos, la visión de Latinoamérica general. Entonces, no es la discusión solo del grupo de trabajo, pero, digamos, de todo el trabajo regional que estamos planteando para esto.
Sí, mejor creo que hazlo tú, que tengo lo que discutimos ahorita en el grupo.
Creo que la visión regional, digamos, de qué estamos planteando regionalmente, no es la discusión del grupo ahorita.
Okay.
So it's
Alex?
No, I was going to say the same thing.
Digamos, no tenemos el tiempo para la discusión, el briefing de la discusión del grupo, es solo el trabajo que se hace regionalmente.
Bueno, básicamente en la región coincidimos en este momento en varios países en procesos preelectorales y estamos tratando de enfocar también nuestro fortalecimiento en aspectos de financiación de la nutrición, de seguimiento a compromisos de financiación. Y para eso hicimos recientemente un intercambio regional, pero vamos a continuar con un curso que estamos empezando a diseñar para mejorar las capacidades de todos los miembros de la red de sociedad civil frente a seguimiento a compromisos de nutrición, de financiación para la nutrición.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much for the overview of the region. And I will now, last but not least, give the floor to Denise for the Asian regional overview, please.
Thank you very much, Alex, and everyone, especially regional coordinator, for sharing their updates and plans. Yeah, I would quickly also want to share situation on ground, and so I have prepared one slide about challenges which not only Asia region is facing, but other regions are also facing. The first challenge is right now, COVID-19 is first priority of governments, particularly health and planning ministries are busy in screening, management, and arrangement of vaccine for COVID. The other challenge is due to economic impact of COVID, limited physical space for investment on human development, especially in health and nutrition projects, is available. And then another point is which I'm sure Sun colleagues, Sun Movement Secretariat colleagues will pass to the government of Japan, and we can also share this issue through advisory group that so far the country governments are not receiving any formal communication from government of Japan about the summit, and that's why there are some doubts about the summit. So there should be some formal communication from government of Japan. And coming to mobilization, CSO's mobilization, as number one, Asia region is right now is in process of mapping of mobilization opportunities to inform regional plan. We are also exploring entry points to mobilize regional bodies, ASEAN, SAARC, ADB, and we are actually developing our strategy how we can influence these regional bodies, and we are also learning from other regions. As I was talking to colleagues in Africa region, uh, at country level. Orientation meetings are in process with the different stakeholders to generate debate at higher level political and policy making fora. So we are supporting our fellow CSS colleagues in terms of providing key messages and talking points while they're speaking to parliamentarians or other policymakers. In Pakistan and Bangladesh, we had follow-up meeting with Ministry of Health as they already made commitments during the launch of N4G Year of Action launch Springboard meeting. So we are following up with them to translate those commitments into actions, and they have given us a positive response. In fact, Pakistan is in process of developing its special program in light with those recommendations. They have allocated 312 billion rupees, and right now a working group is developing a PC1 to implement those recommendations. Similarly, we also had meeting with parliamentarians in Pakistan, and I'm also in contact with the other the regional CSAs, and we are providing them some information material about the holding same events in other regional countries. So country conveners for UN Food Systems Summit have been nominated by most of Asian countries, and our CSA colleagues are in contact with the state or UN or national conveners. Cambodia organized its independent dialogue on 30th March, and similarly, they also participated in state dialogue. Similarly, Pakistan is in contact uh, with the UN Food System Secretariat in Pakistan, And we are also planning to have independent dialogue, and government also actually made promise that they will be giving us due space in state dialogue. In Philippines, one independent dialogue is planned in month of May. So that was from my side. Once we develop our plan, we can share with you shortly. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Danish. It's fantastic to have you in your role as a member of the advisory group with Nutrition for Growth and the government of Japan. So we're really lucky to have you there as our liaison as well. And many thanks to all the regional coordinators for your ongoing support and for steering the civil society alliances. We definitely couldn't do this without you and without the civil society alliance and organizations' work. We are aware of all the challenges ahead of us, but we also know that working together will help us mobilize our governments, our respective governments throughout this year of action. So I'll briefly talk in the last 5 minutes about next steps. So 3 things. I wanted to say how this year of action and our engagement as a civil society network fits within our Civil Society Network 3.0 strategy for the next 5 years, whom many of you have contributed to the latest version, and we are delighted to say that it is almost finalized, and we'll be disseminating it very soon. So the reason why it really fits with our direction is because very simply it cuts across at least 4 of the 5 strategic objectives that we have outlined in our strategy. One is around civil society space, so really promoting meaningful civil society participation and engagement. The second one is around creating an enabling environment and advocating for improved financial policy and legal action on nutrition. And holding leaders accountable as well. The third is around network sustainability and ensuring that our civil society network members are equipped with the skills and resources they need to carry out their work. This webinar is one example, and there'll be a lot more. And the fourth objective, which is in line with this year of action, is around evidence and learning, because together we are generating evidence and we are using it to inform decisions, or asking our governments to use it to inform their decisions and scaling up promising interventions. So this is absolutely in line with our vision and our mission, which is, as a reminder, to develop a sustainable and integrated network of civil society actors that collectively contributes to a world free of malnutrition by 2030. Next steps are that we are going to develop and send an advocacy support pack in all 3 languages to the network, which will include the information from today about the year of action and why it matters to us. How can we engage? When can we engage? So a calendar of opportunities, examples of mobilization activities and strategies that we can carry forward, as well as key advocacy messages that we are still developing with multiple actors in other networks, both for the Food System Summit and the Nutrition for Growth Summit, as well as the social media toolkits. And we might also include some examples of country engagement. So what you've been sharing today in the group discussions and as part of the regional overview is really essential for us to learn from each other what works well and what we can continue building on. Lastly, I want to say that we do have plans to sponsor attendance at the Nutrition for Growth Summit in December. The government of Japan has told us several times that they're really keen to have civil society meaningfully engaged and represented at the summit. So if it turns out to be a physical event, we will make sure to have civil society and young people represented there, whether physically or virtually. But this is our priority, and we have already submitted a list of suggested invitees to the government of Japan based on the answers that you provided through the Civil Society Network survey a few months ago. So a big thank you to you for these suggestions, and we'll be, of course, in touch with you. I think that's it on my side. I know that there will be many unanswered questions after this webinar, because it always generates more questions and concerns and suggestions. So we are here to listen to these, and we will be answering all the other questions from the chat box that we couldn't address today through a Q&A document. So let me wish you all a great end of the day or start to the day to those early risers and well, people for whom the night is approaching soon. So a big thank you to all. We will be in touch. And many thanks to our speakers as well for the excellent presentations today. I hope this will have been informative for all of you, and we can all make the most of this Nutrition Year of Action. Sorry. And that's it from our side. We'll be sending out the recording and the presentations. Thank you very much, and wishing you all a lovely end of the day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.